Hello, everybody. Welcome back to East Coast Haunts. I'm MK.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Zach.
And today we are going to be giving you an in-depth recap of our trip to Halloween Horror Nights 33. It's been about a month now. We are ready to reminisce, even though we did the event to death. I mean, we did like, I think, what was it? All 10 houses at least twice. Oh, I think there was only one that we did only once, but then there were a couple that we did more than twice. So we're going to give you a breakdown on that. We're going to give you, our favorite foods, some highlights of the event, and just like our overall thought. Some lowlights, definitely. There were some, I'll say critiques that we might have. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that they will take into account for next year. But overall, I thought it was a really solid event. I mean, we had a great time. Do you guys want to say that you had a fun time with me too? Or
I had a fun time too.
You heard it here first, folks. Zach had a fun time.
And also, I just want to point out that like our hype list episode, did really well on the charts. So like, thank you guys for giving our Halloween Horror Nights episode some love. We really, we kind of spiked the charts on that one.
Yeah, that was a pleasant surprise, I feel. But I guess the people, they enjoy hearing our opinions. Who would have thought?
It's crazy. I know. Who would tune in to listen to us talk, really?
I'm not going to say I helped the ratings, but I was on that one, so...
Oh, so there's a common denominator? Is that what you're saying?
You got
Zach
the boost.
This is unrelated, but Zach actually created 2,000 separate accounts to listen to that. So that's actually... we got them.
He has 2,000 Apple IDs.
Basing my own ratings. Wow, you gotta keep me
Bro, Spotify Wrapped is gonna go crazy this year. How?
Wait, where do we begin?
I know. Well, I had something that I was gonna say, and now I've totally forgotten about it. Oh, just the fact that now this is obviously going to be a spoiler-filled episode, which doesn't matter because the event has ended. So if I don't know if you're looking for spoilers, if you're not looking for spoilers, we're going to talk about the houses and like stuff that was in the houses, stuff that we liked that was in the houses, stuff that we wish was in the houses, so it's just going to be a comprehensive list. We're going to go through our rankings. And actually that's probably a good place to start, unless you guys think we should start with scare zones. Maybe we should start with scare zones because I don't really have a whole lot to say on them.
Right. I also don't. So let's start with those. Yeah. Start off mild.
Okay, so yes, I would say the scare zones were definitely a low light for me for this event. I could see the theming that they were going for, specifically in Torture Fair, and I keep on wanting to say Jungle of Doom, but it's not. Swamp
like
of the Undead.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like, yes, the Walmart Jungle of Doom.
The Shein Jungle of Doom.
The Shein Jungle of Doom. But I don't really feel like we can give these a fair ranking because when we went on Thursday night, that was the night that we bought our express pass. So we were focused solely on food, drinks, and houses. And we really didn't have a whole lot of time to do anything else. So we kind of like jetted through the scare zones on our way to different houses, but we didn't really stay and like immerse ourselves in them. And then on Sunday, when we went back, it was raining. So there were no scare actors in any of the scare zones. So it definitely wasn't. And we didn't want to be like out in the open for too long. So we didn't hang around to see the decor.
Yeah.
So it's not really a fair judgment, I guess. But if I were to pick a favorite, I guess I would say Torture Fair. I think Vamp 69 last year blew it out of the water. But that's my thoughts. Jungle of Doom. Swamp of the Undead was like, had some cool set pieces. Like they had an alligator that moved that was like biting someone's leg off.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I appreciated last year that all of the scare zones were kind of telling a continuous story, and this one just felt choppy and half baked to me. And those are my thoughts on the scare zones.
I completely agree with you about it feeling kind of half baked. I feel like there were so many opportunities to make things like be bigger and better. And like you said, one of the days that we went, there were literally zero zero actors in the scare zones. Which also, like, I guess I would be curious to know what the protocol is for that, because for a lot of that that second night that we went, it was like barely drizzling. Like, yes, it was raining pretty hard at some points in the night, but at other points it was like misting. So I would be very interested to know like what the protocol is. Like, how do they decide like, okay, we're closing the scare zones? Anyway, yeah, Torture Fair was the only one that even like remotely had a little bit of a theme and effort put into it, in my opinion. And
I agree.
The Blumhouse one, like, it was a cool idea, but I've seen a lot of people say this on Reddit, and I agree with them. It's basically just like a giant like selfie opportunity.
Yes.
So there's not actually any scares because everyone's just like up on these like little mini pedestal things, like waiting to take your selfie with them. And then the other two,
actually,
yeah, go ahead.
Zach, didn't you get a good scare?
Yeah, I was about to say that. So I was waiting in line for Major Sweet's little food, get one of those candy apples and peanut butter
he
cups.
was chomping at the bit.
And I literally turn around and the baby face killer from Happy Death Day was just staring right there behind me. Got me really good. So just by default, I think it has to be like one or two because there was literally no scares in any of the other ones. But after it got me, yeah. So after he got me, the lady that was waiting in line in front of me did not notice, and he did the exact same thing with her, and was literally standing there for like a minute. I'm just like trying to keep quiet, like not crack up, and then she turned and jumped and yelled so loud. So that alone was more entertaining than any other scare zone aspects for me.
And also, I just want to say,
that jester also got us pretty good. Didn't he kind of get used?
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I watched you guys. Yes, I watched you guys get scared when we sat down and we were eating. And they were doing like a cast change in Torture Fair, and there was a jester that had like a bell on a stick, like bells on a stick, and he got you two really good. And I saw him coming up behind you, and I like was trying not to like stare at him so that you guys wouldn't turn around, and he did get you guys good.
I forgot about that too. Yes. So Torture Fair and Blumhouse are my two favorites because they were the only ones that got any scare.
Yeah, that's valid.
Yeah,
the scare zone. Yeah. Well, also the scare zone in the front of the park
doesn't count.
Duality Fear. It was like the scaffolding and like two curtains that like I guess were supposed to represent sinister and surreal, and then of course they had to like fit the chainsaws in, so there were like these naked guys running around with chainsaws.
Bloody chainsaws. It's like they can't stay away, even when it has nothing. That one, and then the other one that was I don't even remember what it was. I guess it was like Demon Queens or something. I just thought those two. I was like, literally zero effort was put into this. Like, I feel like, I don't know. I don't want to be too harsh, but I'm like, I feel like if it's your job. We walked
through Demon Queens like once, and so again, like I don't know if that's like fair to be like it was horrible because like maybe there was stuff that we didn't see, but like I think our general consensus was like there were like 2.5 decent scare zones this year, and and I think part of the thing that made the atmosphere like so fun last year was that they had such a good playlist in the Vamp 69 Scare Zone because it was supposed to be like a music festival. So they had like all this music from like the 60s and like, but it was like fun music from the 60s that like everyone recognizes. And so that was fun to like kind of hang out there, and it like made you want to hang out there and, you know, get some like Last of Us ravioli or whatever. But this year I really couldn't have cared less. So scare zones were meh, but let's get on to the main attraction. Oh, actually, before we do that, I do want to say surprise highlight, I think for all three of us, was the Dead Coconut Club in City
Oh,
Walk, which you don't even have to have a ticket to get in there. And it was
so fun.
awesome. It
we
was
spent
so
our entire night there. On like one of the nights in between, we spent like we spent at least like 2 to 3 hours there.
Oh yeah. And drinks were flowing.
Oh yeah.
Vibe was good. They had some really good live music.
Yes, they did. Those
like
the hex
or
whatever.
Or not acapella, but like a 3-way harmony.
Yeah.
They were really good. Like they were really good, and the whole bar is just decked out with like vamp stuff. Like they kind of went all out. They had like a little arcade section with a vending machine that had like, I don't know, like artery jerky and like,
yeah,
crazy stuff like that. And then they had like blood bags, like hanging up around like in the back of the bar. And I do have to say the drinks were delicious. I got a couple that I was like definitely. But yeah, besides the one, which now I can't remember the name
like
of.
A mojito. It was like sparkly and it was like mojito and it was horrible. But the rest of them were really good.
The rest of them were really good, really strong, and like definitely a better price in there than at the event. So
oh yeah, definitely.
And they had some fun Blumhouse picture ops upstairs or photo ops upstairs.
It was
great. A good time.
I'm really excited to see what they do next year because like that was our first time going, I think, to the Dead Coconut Club, right? At least for me.
Really? Yeah, me too.
So it'll be fun to see what they do next year.
Yes, I'm definitely excited to see like what they theme. I think they've done like Universal Monsters in the past, but they did like a Universal Monsters, like I want to say like a tiki bar, so it was like tropical Universal Monsters, which is like so fun. But
I love
yeah. So let's talk about our house rankings, and then I think we're all different but similar, I would say. I think our number 10 is a good place to start because I believe we all have the same number 10.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Definitely.
So anyone want to share what number 10 was?
I think Zach.
All right. Number 10 was museum. And so this was the first one that we did once we got into the park. We bolted over there and did museum. And honestly, the first time through, I didn't think it was that bad. But that's probably because that was my first house in 4 years. And the only other time I've been here was during COVID. So I was like, oh, that was pretty fun. They maybe got me a couple times. But then I thought about it more, and I went through the other houses and just simply didn't hold up. There's really not a story that's nearly as cohesive as a lot of the other houses. The actual rooms themselves don't really gel together that well. You're kind of just jumping from different random, I guess, historical periods. And
it was almost like you felt bad for the scare actors that were in that one because you're like, ooh, like they definitely know this is like the worst house and they were doing their best. Like it was not their fault. I also saw something, I know I'm going to sound like such a Redditor because this is like the second time I'm mentioning it in like 5 minutes, but people were talking about it on Reddit and I thought it was so interesting because people were saying like, oh, like they clearly just wanted to like reuse the bloater costumes from The Last of Us, which is definitely so true because I'm pretty sure towards the end they're like bloaters that they just like slightly like change the makeup on to make it into like the dead stone or whatever, you know, like the rotting stone. So it was definitely like disjointed, and I think that the wax museum would have actually been way cooler. I just think that it also maybe would have been better if they focused on like it, like maybe one time period or one like type of museum rather than having that as the folklore museum, because it's like right the second that you got a chance to figure out where you were going into the next room.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was just about to say before you said that, that I think they kind of set themselves up for failure by deeming it a folklore museum, because like when they came out and said that, no one knew what a folklore museum is. Like, why not make it a museum of natural history museum? You know?
Yes. Yeah, that would have made so much more sense.
And like I understand, and also, okay, obviously I don't know anything about like budgeting and whatever. Like I have no idea how much it costs to put on an event like this. I feel like a wax museum would have cost less money to do. Like You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Maybe they would have had to employ more scare actors, but like you just get some like a higher special effects makeup person and make it look like melting wax. Like I'm sure they have mannequins that they can work off of.
Agree. But my only thought is that maybe they just kind of wanted to recycle what they already have, and they're like, oh, we have all these Viking costumes, we have all these settler costumes, you know what I mean? And they're just like, let's just throw it all. How can we put it all together? Oh, a museum, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that maybe that was the thought process.
Also, like one more like little funny thing before I move on to at least my number 9 house was. I know last year, Sam and I said that when we were walking out of The Last of Us, like there was literally just like a bloater standing there. I had like a very similar interaction in this house. There's one like hallway that you walk down that there's like masks, I guess like sort of like tribal masks on your right, and then a guy wearing like a massive tribal mask like comes out from your left. And I guess I had like just missed the scare because it's like not the scare actor's fault. Like he probably got the group ahead of us. But like I walked through and he was like standing out there in the open, like just like looking at me. And I was like, oh.
You almost feel bad. You almost like feel a little bit bad for him.
I gave him like a little half-hearted, I moved on because I was like,
be for real, you know.
This is so awkward for both of us. So I'm just going to keep walking.
I actually completely forgot about that.
So like such a funny moment where I was like, okay. All right. So museum was pretty good. It was, there was a reason why we went through this house first. And it was because we had heard that it might be like the disappointing house of the year. Yeah. Do have to say still blows Chucky out of the water. So
totally agree.
Yeah.
And the scare actors did a good job.
Yes, the scare actors that were in there did a good job. They just should have had more scare actors in there.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, so my number 9 house, which I think was also your guys' number 9 house, was Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. And I liked... This storyline had so much potential.
Yeah.
And like I just thought it was a really cool thing that they were doing, like an all-woman house. Like it was composed by a woman. And like the soundtrack was like an all-female team. It was just like a really cool concept. But again, it felt so criminally like understaffed that I missed the first time we walked through the house, there was like literally no scare actors.
There was probably like 7 max.
At the absolute most. The scenery was gorgeous, like aesthetically, one of the most beautiful houses, I think, between the 3 years that I've gone. Definitely one of like the prettier houses. Very similar, I would say, like an aesthetic to maybe like a Blood Moon, where you like walk in and immediately like the stage is set by that first static scene, or even like Universal Monsters last year, which was a phenomenal house. Like they just set that scene for you right away where you're like walking onto the streets of Paris. And this one was like, okay, you're walking right into Saskia's, like the Van Helsing crypt or whatever, and it's like snowing. It was really cool. But and also like, I don't know, this is, I guess, kind of like a little nitpicky of me, but I was really rooting for my girl Saskia and the Bride of Frankenstein, and they just like lost. I don't know.
That was it. It was the ending. The ending was kind of like. The ending was kind of like, oh, okay,
like okay,
that sucks.
Like okay, rip. The thing that I was also confused about was like there were so many hidden things in there that like if you didn't time them perfectly, you missed the entire narrative of the story. You know?
Yeah.
Like there's one part where so and so pops out holding Saskia's head, which you guys didn't see the first time, but I got it because I was in the front. And so when I walked out, I was like, "Oh, like rip Saskia." You guys were like, "What? Like, what are you talking about?" And I was like, Did you not see her head?
No, because only certain people. Yeah, if you're not there at the right time, you don't see it. So then you're just like, oh, we were like, oh, that was such an abrupt ending. Like you're like, wait, so what happens?
They could have done like also I think a Dungeons and Dragons type thing where they had different endings for different run throughs. Like maybe like Saskia and Bride of Frankenstein could have one night, and then Anaxamoon and the Dracula's daughter and the other one, the she wolf, could have won another time. But yeah, if you got a bad run through and you didn't listen to like the Universal podcast, you would have no idea what's going on in this house. And it's not complete. It's just kind of like, and it's not, again, like, I don't want to say it's like the scare actor's fault because it's absolutely not. It's like the design of like the reveal of a couple of key plot elements were poorly timed so that like not every person got the same run through.
I completely agree. Like, if you didn't listen to the podcast, like you just said, like I would have had literally no clue what the storyline was. And even though I did listen to it, I still was like kind of a little bit confused in some parts. Zach and I were able to see the jump scare with the or I don't know if you would even call it a jump scare, but the part with like where the wolf has like, I don't know, it gets like pushed back by like the bungee, they're like pulled back with a rope or something. And we were able to see it, but and like people were freaking out about it. But I don't really think it was that memorable because now that I'm like trying to think about it, I don't really even remember like what was so cool about it.
Yeah, this house was really like, it had the bare bones, to be really good, and I just think it kind of fell flat.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one. So just, I guess, a little foreshadowing on my rankings. I value scares 1 and then fun 2. And then if you don't really hit either of those, that's when it falls down the rankings. And this one didn't really do either for me. Storyline's cool too, but ultimately I want to be scared or I want to have a lot of fun. And this one was more of a story-based one, and I didn't really love the story. I didn't find it particularly scary. And again, I don't think it's a very fun story just because it's just really about some creatures battling. I didn't really see this. I didn't really get the story as it was unfolding because again, we kind of discussed that already where we just simply missed the end the first time through. Kind of an important part. And yeah, I just, this one also fell understaffed. Just not my favorite. Definitely would be a pass. These bottom 2 are very clearly my bottom 2.
Yeah.
Sam, was this house also your number 9?
I believe it was. I just kind of redid my list real quick because I didn't remember it. But yeah, I believe it was my number 9.
Okay. All right. Anyone want to talk about their number 8?
Yeah. So I'll go. I think this one was actually your number 9, Sam. It was Quiet Place.
Yeah, that could be correct.
I think you originally had Quiet Place number 9, but it's my number 8. And this was a little disappointing for me that I wanted to rank higher, but also I thought it actually was good in what it could have done. So I initially ranked it really high. I thought they could have done a lot with it. And I thought more about it. And it's like, okay, it's a haunted house where you want to be quiet. So that kind of takes away from the whole, I want to get jump scared and all that. Cause as I walked through, we only did this one time. It was the only house that we only did once because we really went through and thought, well, like we got kind of the gist of everything. There wasn't many scare actors, mostly animatronic and yeah, pretty much really more animatronic focused than actual people focused, which I get, but I kind of wanted some more people to actually try and boost the scares a bit because animatronics just didn't really do it for me as much. They were very good animatronics, but in terms of scares, they just don't really deliver on the same level, in my opinion. But in terms of telling the stories, the movies did a pretty good job. It just overall wasn't that scary. It was, again, more story-based, and I think it did a good job of that. But in terms of one that, like, oh, this is a really fun haunted house to go through, not really great. A cool house in general, sure. But in terms of scaring you or really having a lot of fun, it wasn't really there for me. It was still, I liked it better than the other 2, but still pretty firmly on the lower part of the list here.
So I liked this house. I think I liked it more than you guys did like it because for me, scare wise, like I startle really easily. It doesn't matter if it's a scare actor, an animatronic, like if it comes at me, I'm gonna scream. So I will say we tried our best to like not scream at all in this house, and Sam and Zach both made it through, and I like gasped at one point, like I had a little scream at one point. But the fact that I almost made it through this house without screaming should tell you like just how scary it was. Like it was not very scary. I do like both of the movies. I wouldn't say they're like one of my favorites, but I do like them. Like favorite horror movies, but I think this house served its purpose more as like a tribute to the fans more so than like a traditional haunted house. Like I felt like I was walking onto a movie set more so than I was walking through a haunted house. So in that regard, if I was judging it based on that, it would rank very highly. But I like, again, it wasn't scary, and I just kind of felt like I was doing like a walkthrough of the movie. And that was my thoughts.
I could not agree more with that last part about it kind of being like a movie set, because you did feel like you were just like walking through the different scenes of the movie. A lot of the quote unquote scares were not like conducive to being actually scary. Like when the little boy or whatever would jump out with like holding the baby, and like the scare was like the baby crying loudly, I was like, that's just not scary. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, you felt like you were like, yeah, going into the set, seeing everything up close, which was really cool, but it didn't really feel like a haunted house to me. Which is probably why I put it above Universal Monsters, because I was like, I thought at least Universal Monsters had like that spooky element to it, whereas this I didn't really feel like it did.
I agree. Okay, so it seems like we have the same like bottom three houses all around, I think. So
yeah.
I know that this is where at least my list diverges. So I'll go first here because I know that this house ranks higher for you guys. My number 7 was Triplets of Terror. And I also I feel like I say this every time we talk about Halloween Horror Nights houses. It is not that this house disappointed me. It's just that the others ranked higher. So in this house, I first of all loved the opening scene where you walk in and it's misting and they have the cop car out there and the sirens are going. It's immediately immersive. Like you do feel like you're in some sort of like white trash trailer park hoarder house. And it feels so real because they're kind of like engaging all of your senses. Like there's definitely some smells going on. There's the mist. Obviously sight. It is very like a cool thing to walk into. And then you get into the first scene and immediately like you're assaulted by all 3 triplets. I do have to say there were a lot of what's a better word? You're like attacked.
No, that is exactly what it is. That's what they all come out at once and you're like, dear God.
Exactly. And like the one guy got me twice, that junior guy, because he's standing in the corner and he was the only one that really scared me out of the triplets.
Yeah. Well, the other 2 were like shorter than that.
Exactly. I like feel like I could have easily taken down either of the like the bunny or the duck or whatever. I don't remember what it is. Yeah. But for this being last on my hype list, I feel like it exceeded my expectations and then some. It was a great house. I loved the little true crime podcast lab that you walk through that kind of gives you a little rundown of like, it kind of serves as like, okay, here's what's going on in this house. Like, here's what you can expect. Here's the characters. And it was a completely immersive part of the story. It's not like they're playing like a little track before the house that's like, you're about to walk into, the Barmy's murder part. Like, so it definitely, it gave you a sense of what was going on without taking you out of the story. Again, like I didn't like the scene with the dog, but it was like almost so close you could have missed it. I just didn't like this.
I missed it every time.
I have to say, like, I saw the dog. That was not the part that bugged me. That it looked like a stuffed animal. It was like the track of like the dog crying and then like getting killed. Yeah. Like the sound that I was like, no thanks. Like I'm good. And seeing the empty bowl on the ground, I was like, woof. Yeah. So literally. Okay. Get out of my head. What was I saying? Yeah, so anyway, I liked the whole house. I really, really did enjoy it. But unfortunately I liked the other ones more, so it has to stay at number 7 for me. Why don't you share your number 7 house,
number
please?
7. I was gonna say Triple Terror will rank much higher for me. But my number 7, which is probably going to be ranked much higher for you all, is Monstrose. Yeah, this one's probably going to be top 3 for both of you. Or maybe. I don't know. But it's going to definitely be higher than this. I don't know. I just don't think I had as good of runs as you two.
Yeah.
I also know you were both very locked into the lore and the storyline of it because it was one of the top houses in California last year. Whereas I just had no clue what was going on. I will say going into a blind, it kind of presents a monster and you walk through and this monster is like killing people in the way they do. But you don't really get the lore of the monster in the actual house. So it feels like you kind of have to go in knowing it or you kind of miss it.
Yeah.
Like there was a couple of the monsters I kind of got, understood. Like it was clear what they did. But in terms of having any actual connection to like, oh, wow, this is a cool story, or this is a cool monster, I think you definitely need to go into it with that background knowledge and listening to the podcast like you two do. So going into blind, definitely not one of my favorites. There was some good scares, and a lot of really cool animatronics and set pieces, but overall, the story didn't do anything for me because I just didn't know what was going on. So yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. I disagree, but that's fair.
But I see why you say that. So my number 7 was Monster. Wait, oh my god, why do I keep saying Monstrous? It was Universal Monsters Unmasked, whatever. Not Unmasked, whatever. Universal Monsters female version. And that was just a little bit higher than A Quiet Place for me because I guess I just liked the theming better. I liked What? Why are you looking at me crazy?
What was your number 9 then?
Quiet Place.
Then what was your number 8?
Wait, what number are we on right now? My 10 was Museum. Oh my god, you're right. My number 7 was Ghostbusters. Oh my god, that's so confusing. Yeah, my number 7 was Ghostbusters, which for you two, obviously we're sensing a theme. It's like each of us for our number 7 had something that was like way, like my number 7 was Ghostbusters. I know it was way higher for you guys. My only reasoning is that I have not seen Ghostbusters. I haven't seen like the original or the most recent whatever it was called, the Death Chill or whatever. What was the newest Ghostbuster called?
Frozen Empire. But I just have to say something really quickly. Is that Sam went to high school with one of the characters in this movie. Like,
yes,
it's like, and so the character was in the house, which was kind of a surprise. And then also, like, we turned on a movie later that night. And the girl was like also in that.
That was actually really cool. That was like the reason that that was like my favorite part of the house. Maybe I was like, I don't think this woman knows who I am, but like I still remember her from high school, and like she's in all these like huge movies now. So I went in there and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna see like a girl from my high school, like a scare actor playing the girl from my high school. Like that's crazy.
That's insane. That was my favorite.
No, that was really cool, especially then when we turned on the movie later that night and she was in the movie. We're like, okay, what is going on?
Get out of our heads.
So that part of it was really cool, and I also thought that the house in general was awesome. But like I said, I just haven't seen any of the Ghostbusters, so I couldn't get as into it as I could with the movies that I had seen. But I'm sure you guys are gonna have a lot. I know. I do need to watch it, and I think you guys will have a lot more details to add for Ghostbusters because you have seen them. So I'll save the rest of the critiques for you guys.
Thank you, Queen. Okay.
Of course.
Zach, why don't you do your number 6? Oh my God, are you kidding?
So my number 6 is probably another one of your top ones, but it is Goblin's Feast.
So, I remember that.
So again, it was very fun. It was very campy, but it just was not scary. And there really overall wasn't a story. It was, which again, that's not one of my main thing. Fun's probably number 2, story 3, scary 1. It did not have 1 or 3. It had very much had 2. It was a fun, campy time, but there was no scares. There was this one scene where you look up and it was like a giant goblin, but it was like not done very well, where you could just tell it was like a projection on the wall.
Yeah, it was so, yeah.
It was for a second there. All the actual goblins are pretty much the same because it's just a bunch of goblins. So there wasn't much variety in the costume themselves. And again, yeah,
they're Yoda-like.
Story is pretty much you walk through and the goblins try to eat you, and that's the whole thing. There's not really too much else going on. And the scares are pretty repetitive because most of the goblins are the same. But overall, it's still a really fun time. Like my critique is that it's just repetitive, but if you like that repetitive thing, it was awesome. I didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty fun, but it's
if you like that repetitive thing, if simple-minded,
if you just like goblin jumping out with turkey legs and cleavers, it was fun, and it was fun. But for me, yeah, it was pretty good.
Sam, what was your number 6?
My number 6 was this one's probably might piss you off, Mare. Actually, it might piss both of you off. Slaughter Cinema. I thought it was super fun. I loved it. However, the reason that I couldn't do it higher was just because, like Mary Kate was saying, I loved all the other ones just so much more. And B, I felt like the second that I got sort of situated in one of the rooms, I was stepping into the next room. So I didn't really have a chance to fully immerse myself in the story. But I loved the idea that I loved how there were so many different places you could, so many different rooms to go into. But I think maybe if they had let's say there were like 8 rooms, if they had taken that down to like 6 rooms, it might have been a little bit more successful and less choppy. So that was my number 6.
I completely agree with you. And actually Slaughter Cinema was also my number 6.
Okay.
It's just for exactly the reason that you said, like, I loved how disjointed it was, but also some of the transition rooms were a little bit too long. And as soon as you like get into the story of one of them, then you're like into the next transition room.
Yeah.
I have to say Mardi Gras Murders, I hope we see that done as like a full house because I thought that was awesome. It was the first room when you first walk in. Those gestures were so freaky.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Guy throwing up?
Yes, ew. He threw up into my mouth. I had my mouth open mid-scream, and then they did a little water effect, and a droplet got in my mouth, and I was like, they're lucky that I don't actually make this a real vomit effect. And let's see, Blood and Chum was a little bit disappointing. As a huge Jaws fan, it was like one puppet and one scare actor in there. They definitely could have cut that out and made one of the other ones longer. I was not excited for the Night of the Undead Clowns or whatever the heck that one was, where you're going through the clown graveyard. Got 2 of my worst scares of the entire event in that room. So I guess they really, what is the saying? I don't know. Proved me wrong.
They really showed you. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. But it was fun. I loved it. There was like some weird smells that Sam and I noticed in this house. There was one room that it was like supposed to be a saloon, but it smelled like roses. Roses.
Yes.
And we're like, maybe that would have done better in like the Mummy strip club.
Yeah, that's exactly what we said. Yeah, it's kind of like they just to add them.
Exactly. But overall, I really liked it. Didn't disappoint. I loved the like line for it where they're projecting all the fake trailers of the movies that are in the house, and then they have the old-fashioned cars outside, so it looks like a drive-in, and then you enter through like the snack shack. It was a really fun time. I really liked it. And then they had a couple of callbacks to the original Slaughter Cinema, so definitely really liked the house, but it was a little bit too disjointed for me to put up any higher.
Agreed.
Okay. I'll say my number 5 now too. My number 5 was Monstruos, The Monsters of Latin America. Like Zach said, I think Sam and I had a better handle on like the lore of these monsters because we did listen to the podcast, and like we had looked it up beforehand because we knew that Hollywood had it. So we got kind of like the background of it. Elsie Bone was freaky as hell.
Yeah.
And so was the one that eats the babies, the Tualapuchi or whatever. That one was freaky. Actually, all 3 of them were freaky too, because when you walked into the La Lechuza, who's like the bird-looking one, into her lair, it smelled rancid in there. It smelled like spit. And
it was so bad. It was so bad.
So gross. But that animatronic was really cool. It had like a pair of kicking legs like coming out of its mouth. Like it was just like freaky. But the worst scare that I got in that house was the giant puppet of like the Elsie Bone face. Yeah. And it literally got probably like 3 inches from my actual face when it like jumped out. And it had like spit coming out of its mouth. It was disgusting and like super like hyper realistic. I will say I enjoyed this house more on my second walk through it, because Sam and I had read through like the walkthrough on like the HHN wiki. We kind of knew what to look out for. Like at one point you're supposed to be entering like Elsie Bone's sack. And so like that kind of
crazy statement.
Not that kind of sack. It's like a literal sack, like Santa's sack.
Yeah.
And anyway, so there was let me take a deep breath here. Yes. So you enter in through his sack, and all of a sudden you're like in this like meat locker thing, but it made a lot more sense after reading through like the description of it online, so it was a lot more enjoyable. Overall, a lot of really good scares. I've seen a lot of this on Reddit, but like the last scene is kind of underwhelming because there are so many good scares up until that point, and then they have like a static figure at the end that doesn't do anything and is like, okay, bye, here's your grave.
Yeah, like, got him.
Okay. All right, Sam, what was your number 5?
My number 5 was Major Sweets. I loved Major Sweets. I thought it was so fun. I don't really, my only critique is, like, the only reason that it's number 5 and not number 4 or 3 is just because the other 2 I liked slightly better. But I like the other 2 that are numbers 4 and 3. I'm getting too into the numbers now. But I loved the interactive elements where you could like press a button and something would happen, like some like water would squirt or something. I guess one thing I didn't love about this was like there were a lot of again, there were not a ton of scare actors, and there were a lot of like mannequins sort of like meeting their fate or whatever. Like, and so it was just kind of like, okay, like there was not a ton of super, super scary parts, but it was so fun and camp and like silly and creative, which I loved. So I thought this was definitely one of my favorites, but I just think that if there had been some more scares and a couple less of the mannequins, it would have been even more up there.
Yep. Number 5 is also Major Sweets for me. So I think Sam pretty much summed it up as well. Was a surprise. I had this really low on the hype rankings. I think it was my number 9. I just couldn't imagine it did very much that make you actually scared in this house. And I wasn't entirely wrong, but I thought it was a lot of fun. I still don't think it's a very scary house at all. But the actual setting and the scenery and the house design as a whole was really top tier in my opinion. And I thought it was a lot of fun. And again, definitely not a scary house. Overall, I thought it came out much better than I thought it would, and pretty solid house.
So
it's definitely it's entertaining.
It was Major Sweets is my number 4, and honestly, it could have been number 3 had I got to go through it like one more time and get a really good run through. It was, I thought, so fun. The first time that we went through this house on Thursday night was, I think we had just done, it was like our 4th house that we did, and we did like Museum and Goblin's Feast and Eternal Bloodlines, which none of the 3 of those houses are like super scary, or like we missed a lot of scares in them. And then I went through this house like the first out of us 3, and I hit every single scare. And I walked out of this house, my adrenaline was pumping. The guest triggers were so fun.
It was awesome.
I just loved like the theming of it. Like it smelled like candy in there. I loved like how it was immersive, like floor to ceiling. Like if you looked up above you, there were like these big taffy pullers. And like just like different, like there was one person that had like a giant lollipop. They were like decapitated, and they had like a giant one of those like swirled lollipops like stuck in where their head should be, which is disgusting. But like it was so like perfectly gruesome. I loved Mrs. Treats. I wish we had gotten to see like maybe one more scare actor of her in the house, especially because I think we were missing one of her scare actors each run through. Like she's supposed to make 2 different appearances in the house, and I think we only got her once in each of our run-throughs. I thought she was like a cool character. Major Sweets definitely got me like a couple of times when we were going through. I really, really liked this house. It made me wish that I had gone through the scare zone when they had done it. So all around, loved it. Really, really high-ranking house, but unfortunately the top 3 just edged it out for me. Anyone want to share their number 4?
Yeah. My number 4 was Triplets of Terror. Mary, you already kind of touched on it. I just loved it. I thought that it could have been so bad. Like, it had all the makings of a really lame house, because it was like, it was like very generic, like, oh, these people kill their family, and you're walking through the house. So we all had like such low expectations. Yeah. But I loved it. I thought there were like I loved how it all took place in the same, besides the podcast lab, like it all took place in the same house. I thought that it wasn't like insanely scary, but like there were definitely some parts with that one triplet junior, that big guy, like where he really scared us. I loved the way how we were outside of the trailer a couple of different times, and then we were inside. I just thought that was really, really well done. And it was like, I don't know, it was fun. Like it kept you, I feel like it kept me on the edge of my seat, even though I wasn't sitting. I guess it kept me on my toes. One thing I did want to bring up though, do you guys remember the scene where they're like, this part was like so disjointed, at least I think it was this, and it wasn't in Major Suites, but there was like a part where there was like a guy who was like filled with like he was like ballooned. It was like this huge guy, and they had like been feeding him I don't know, something. Maybe it was Major Sweets, now that I'm thinking about it, but I need to look it up. So
you were right. You're right. I don't know what they were doing, but yeah, there was a guy just was like he looked like the blueberry guy from
yes, I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Or from like Harry Potter, like Aunt Marge. Like, what was that? What was the point of that?
They like broke into a cake factory.
Okay.
Not quite sure where that came from, but I think that's what happened.
They stuffed him with cake.
No, you laugh at me, but I think that is actually what...
With birthday cake.
I think that's actually what it was. So
I'm not being sarcastic.
Like I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, and like I was like, what is this? Like, it's cake decorating area. Like that was so. Bless you. That part was so like no offense to them, but it was like kind of stupid. I was like, okay, like I feel like they just wanted to reuse whatever that model thing was.
Let me see. Oh, they don't have Triplets of Terror walkthrough anymore. It was removed? Question mark.
Oh, it was taken down.
We will find it. We'll find out, and we will answer that in our next episode.
Yes.
Zachary, what was your...
My number 4 was Ghostbusters. So yeah, this whole area is just the ones I thought were easily the most fun. I love the little mini Stay Puft Marshmallow people throughout the house. So much fun. So I've seen the Ghostbusters. I've seen the original. And I've seen the Afterlife, but I actually hadn't seen Frozen Empire before going into this. But it didn't really matter too much. I kind of got the gist of the story without needing it, which I thought was pretty, always a bonus. Unlike with something like Monstrous, where I had no clue what was going on. And yeah, seeing all the characters they picked for Ghostbusters, very, very good. They all looked very similar to the actual characters, especially the new girl character. What is her name?
McKenna Grace.
McKenna, yeah. That girl I thought this characters for her looked exactly like her. And I thought it was just a super fun house. The Gallica, what is it? Garacas? Garacas got me on multiple occasions. There's one scene where you go outside and it's like and it's snowing and there's a Garaca that pops out from the side. They got me like multiple times. It kept popping out at me. And there was literally like the first room, there's this one set that kind of directs your attention to the middle of the room. Nothing's really even going on yet, and there's just like a firefighter that pops out and absolutely scared the shit out of pretty much everyone in the room on multiple occasions. Like I think the first time through we didn't even notice him because he's coming behind, and the second time through he got everyone. But I thought it was a good mix of really fun and actually some decent scares and a really fun set as a whole, especially with all the little Stay Puffs going crazy. So I thought it was a great house.
Also, I do want to say I watched Zach get his shit rocked by the Garaka. After you exit the house, there's another Garaka out there, and after you exit Monstrous, there was a Elsie Bon on stilts.
Oh my god,
that also got Zach really good. So Zach thought he was in the clear walking out of these houses, and he really got got.
Yeah, I feel like you're safe and you feel like you're done, and that's like when they get you, especially this year. I don't remember if they did it last year, but definitely this year.
I think they did it. They did it definitely with Stranger Things. There was a Demogorgon after the house.
Okay, yeah.
That got me. Yeah. So everyone's gone through their number 4, right?
Yes.
All right, Sam, why don't you tell us your number 3?
I would love to. My number 3 was Goblin Feast. Zach, I totally agree with you with your critiques. Like, a lot of the goblins kind of looked the same. The plot was literally just like, oh, they're gonna eat you. But I love, medieval stuff. I love, Lord of the Rings, which it kind of reminded me of. So I think it was just the fact that I went in being like, oh, I love Lord of the Rings. This reminds me of that. I think that was the main reason that I just thought it was fun, because it was very immersive. Like, you're in the tavern. It was just fun and cute. It was not scary at all, but it just made me laugh. So that's kind of why I loved it.
Goblin Feast was also my number 3, and for all the reasons that you just said. I mean, it was so fun. I loved just the kind of Thanksgiving, but it reminded me of that PETA campaign that went around a while ago.
Oh my god, yes,
for Thanksgiving, where it was what if you were on the plate instead of the turkey, and then they're that was the vibe of this whole house. I thought the whole set piece, what do you call it? The verbal triggers, I don't know, whatever you call them, the recorded lines, they were hilarious, so quotable. When before it's not ready yet. And quiet, meat, you'll scare the rest of the cattle. Like, like so good. I loved the little detail where you like walk in the back and there's a cage and it has like a human in it. She's like, let me out, and it says like catch of the day.
Yeah, that was funny.
I thought that was hilarious. What else? That was really good. King Pussnubber at the end where he's like this giant goblin. He was crazy. The character design I thought was awesome. It definitely reminded me a little bit of Blood Moon, where there was like you like go out into the village and you get to go in like a bunch of like you get to go in like the the saloon, the pub, and then you like go into a couple of the different goblin houses. It was just like it was a really fun, immersive time, and I think that they definitely I'm glad that they went the fantasy route again, because I know there was a lot of mixed opinions on Dueling Dragons last year, and I'm glad that they kind of like redeemed the fantasy genre for a haunted house.
Yeah. Agreed.
Even though
the show
Dueling Dragons was fun, but exactly.
Yeah, we love Dueling Dragons,
Right.
but yeah, people were not happy about it.
Yes. Zach, what was your number 3?
Yeah, it is Slaughter Cinema. And realistically, Slaughter Cinema is probably should be ranked more with you where you both had it. Was it the third best house? Absolutely not. Objectively, no, not even close. But I don't really care. I loved it. It is so all over the place. Half of the movies are completely half baked and not well done at all. But again, I do not really care. Because the ones that were really good were excellent, and like even the ones that were bad were kind of like, I get it, it's funny, and it's also like a B movie, campy. It's like it's almost not supposed to be good.
Well, yeah, no, they were supposed to be the B-side horror.
The B-sides, like one in particular, the zombie strippers. I thought it was gonna be really fun, and it was like one room and one half-ass stripper, and then you walk out of the room. It was so bad.
It was like the day shift. It was the day shift at that.
But
strip.
Yeah,
it doesn't really matter because again, I thought there's a ton of variety in the costumes. Obviously, all different movies. It's just right up my alley. Like it could have been done as poorly as possible, and still would probably have been like 6. So I enjoyed it. Number 3.
All right, what was your number 2?
Number
Kick
2.
us back.
Yeah,
keep going.
So
you're on a roll.
Number 2, and easily my most surprising and house I did not think would do that is Triplets of Terror.
Wow,
number 2, and because the thing that I value most is scary, and I actually thought that was one of the scariest houses besides Insidious. Killer number 1, which all I have left was Insidious.
You spoiled it.
Sorry, but no, it's like a thing. Like I have a weird phobia of like throat cuts, and literally you walk into this house, and the first thing is that the triplets just cut an actual live actor's throat. I was like, oh shit,
it's crazy. They went through like so many actors for this to get that.
Yeah,
right?
They actually cut their throats.
Yeah, I mean, it was 10 points for believability, right? So
instantly I was like, okay, here we go. And like I thought it was a lot of really good scares. I think I had a great run both times because I kind of went through first on. I think both times we went through this. And they just constantly were. I was in the range of a jump scare. They were getting me over and over. I felt like on edge, which is weird because again, I know you guys weren't that scared. I generally am not as. I feel like you guys both got more scared than I did most of the time. But that house in general had me way more on edge than you both.
You're so brave.
All right, whatever. But I thought it was really cool. I liked the characters. I thought they were goofy as hell, but also pretty scary. It was a fun time, and I thought all the individual scenes and the true crime kind of like spin they had on it was pretty cool too. And overall, really good house. Definitely overperformed in my opinion. I know a lot of people didn't like it. I know you two didn't love it, but I liked it a lot. That was pretty good. So
I liked it a lot. I would say I loved it. I thought it was fun.
I would say
Sam,
widowy.
What was your number 2?
My number 2 was Monstruos. Like we were saying, a lot of it has to do with like the run that you had, and I just have to have really good runs both times. I loved the giant animatronics of Elsie Bowen and the owl. I thought the smells in there were awesome. I thought the theming was awesome. Like Mary Kate said, it's like we listened to like the podcast beforehand, like we knew the stories behind each of them, which just made it way cooler. Like, and we, of course, we read through the walkthrough, so we were able to like find all the Easter eggs, which to me, like, I think it's like way cooler when you can like see all the Easter eggs as you're walking through. I just thought it was so well done, and it was something like I'm not super familiar with like Latin American folklore, so learning about it and seeing it, I thought was really, really cool. So that was definitely my number 2. And I wish I could go through it. Didn't we do that one 3 times or no? I'm not thinking of Goblin's Feast.
We definitely did Goblin's Feast 3 times. I actually also think we did Museum 3 times.
No.
Okay, did we?
I thought we did because we didn't use our express pass the first time. Yeah, we did 11 houses the first night. We did Museum twice.
Goblin's Feast.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So, yeah,
I can't
absolutely
remember.
loved it. Doesn't matter.
My number 2 was Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And if you would tell me, however many months ago we did our hype list, that my top 2 were going to be IPs, I would have told you were insane. But this house was so fun. Unlike these two, had seen Frozen Empire, and I felt like it didn't really add like a whole lot to my experience, but I kind of like knew what was going on. They hit every single place that I thought should be a room when I was watching the movie. Like the occult bookstore, they had the laboratory scene, obviously the firehouse, which is like an iconic set piece. They had the Ecto 1, which how can you have a Ghostbusters house without that? But they also had like all the characters. They had all the new characters. They had all the old characters. They had all 4 Ghostbusters. They had Janine Melnitz, who's the receptionist. They had like a callback to Gozer, which I thought was really cool. They had like Slimer was in there. And then they had all like the new ghosts. Like they had the one that's like, it's like a blue dragon, which I thought was pretty cool. And obviously the highlight was the little Stay Puft Marshmallow Men. I mean, they're so cute.
They're so cute.
I wish I could have taken one home. And this was actually the only house that I think we found the snail in. Like, so the art design team like hides little snails in the house. And this was like the only house, like as like a little Easter egg. This was the only house that we found it, I think, like without any help. Like we just found it organically as we were going through. It was like in one of the beakers in the laboratory. And yeah, I loved this house. I thought it was so fun. They had the Ghostbusters theme playing as you walked out of it, which 10 out of 10. Great atmosphere, great vibes. Yeah, I loved it. So
we all have the same.
There's one house that none of us have mentioned yet, which means it's all of our number 1 houses.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Yeah, that.
That sounds right to me.
It also was just announced, I think, yesterday that it won the House of the Year in Orlando. And that is, of course, Insidious The Further. I mean, someone else talk because I feel like I've been talking for a million years, but this house was it was so good.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. This I'll go first. This was my favorite house of all time.
Oh, all time.
Yeah. All-time favorite haunted house.
Wow. Like anywhere?
Like anywhere, yeah. It was absolutely fantastic. It starts off with a bang. It was in the only other year I've been to. It was Tooth Fairy that was in this house where like they have baby. They have like story parts of the story like hanging down on banners before you enter the giant red door. Like they have the little drawing the little kid does in the first one, and
the one that's like last night I fell
and the
asleep
scene where
watched myself fly away.
Yeah, and the scene where like the red lipstick face was right behind Patrick Wilson, the first one, like all the iconic scenes right off the bat, and then you go through this giant red door, and it's just go with scares. And probably the 4 or 5 best scares I got throughout the entire thing were in this house. There was a triple scare at the very end, or like a quad scare where all the villains from all the movies pop out at once, and it's just insanity. There's one room where you're going through these like a bunch of curtains, and and there's just endless and tiptoe to the whatever that song's playing, and just tiptoe to the whatever is playing. I mean, who cares? So it's creepy as hell, and then all these lipstick face dudes are jumping out at you from like, and you don't know where because it's just all curtains, so they can come from anywhere. There's a mirror room where I forgot who was jumping on that one, but I don't believe I actually watched that movie.
Oh, it was,
I think it was the third one.
The key.
Didn't you like not know where to go in that room? Because
I just ran into a mirror.
One of the house attendants had to like actually come over and steer him in the right direction.
I was just running the wrong way.
It's a bit dangerous, honestly. Like I'm sure people like wiped out there.
I mean, overall, every scene was fantastic. There were so many good scares. Just an absolutely awesome house. It was so good. I wanted to go through even more, but the line was always the longest because I think everyone knew it was the best. So, just 10 out of 10, easily number one, not even really close.
I completely agree. It really, like, obviously my top like 6 or 7 even, like I loved all of them, but like this one, it just was not, it wasn't even close. Like I just feel like the production value, they had so many scare actors in there. The music was great. The set was amazing. Like you're outside the house in that very first part. And it looks like the house from the movie, like the way they're able to kind of like play with perspectives. I thought that the way that the actors, the scare actors were so scary. Like the bride in black looked so scary. The lipstick face demon looked so scary. Keyfinger or whatever the heck his name was, Keyface. Definitely not Keyfinger. But like they all were so scary. Whereas in stuff like Major Sweets, it's like, like, oh, it's scary when they pop out, but like they don't look that scary. But with Insidious, it was like actually terrifying. It was kind of interesting because one of the runs through, I didn't like get any scares, and I was so disappointed because Mary-Kate and Zach and everyone was saying it was the best house, and then luckily we got to go through again, and they let me go first, and like it was just completely different. Like I got scared so many times. There was one part where, which I'm sure they can explain it better because like I didn't even see this part, but like they had like the bride in black like above, like coming out of like a window or something, like looming above me, which I didn't even see, which is probably good because I would have actually like shat myself. But it was just so fun. It probably was my favorite haunted house I've also ever been in. It was terrifying. It was like the type of like when you're so scared that you're like laughing, but you're also screaming. I just thought it was so
totally. This house was awesome. Watching Sam and Zach get like, I would say that definitely not that I get like scared to like, I do get scared in these houses, but like I get startled really easily and I scream when I get startled. So I always feel like I walk out of that house and like I'm the scaredy cat, but watching these two go through and like get the level of scares that like I feel like I always get, because it takes a lot less to like scare me, was like the highlight of my trip. I was laughing so hard at Zach running into the mirror that I got scared by Keyface and I ran into a pole. So that was good. I like hit my arm on it, and then he like reached out like he was like, so, like he was trying to say like sorry, and I was like it's fine. And then watching the bride in black on stilts like actually like hunch over Sam, and both Zach and I are watching it. We're like, Sam, like look up. And oh, it was so good. And having seen all of the Insidious movies like from the franchise too, it really makes you appreciate like how much they crammed into a 7 or 8 minute walkthrough. I mean, starting from the first movie where it's obviously like the lipstick demon, it's like he makes an appearance all the time, but also like one of my favorite jump scares in any horror movie of all time is the one in Insidious 1 where I don't even know his name, but he's like the weird like almost like biker-ish demon with like this like back hair is pacing back and forth on the balcony, and then all of a sudden he's in the house. And he was like featured heavily in this house in the beginning of this house. And then the bride in black obviously is terrifying. And then they had the room from the second movie where like all the victims are covered in the drapes. terrifying. I hate the mannequin rooms, but like I also love, like, it's a love-hate relationship with them.
Yes.
And then they had The Man Who Can't Breathe, which is from the third movie. And they had a really good like mirror scare in the jail cell with Keyface where he just seemingly comes out of nowhere. That got me so good. And then like Zach was saying, like there's like a quadruple jump scare at the end. That really was just like the cherry on top of everything. It so deserved House of the Year. I'm so glad it won it. Everyone who worked in this house blew it out of the water. And yeah, this is definitely going to go down as like an all-timer, I think. And to do that with an IP too is like where you're kind of limited as to like what you can do. Definitely, I think they really, really, really had something special with this house. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Insidious.
It was so good.
Sam, do you want to just give quick overview of like some of your favorite foods that you tried at the event?
Absolutely. Favorite foods, I would say, aesthetic wise, I loved the look of the Bride of Frankenstein cake.
Yes.
The taste was not quite as great. It was a little bit dry, but it was, it had like that black coating on the outside, with white frosting, and then inside there was the bright green cake and like the raspberry like jam inside. So it just like aesthetically it looked awesome. I thought that the turkey wing from the Goblin's Feast was delicious. It was a little bit hard to eat, especially because we were splitting it and like we weren't really sitting down.
It's hard to split between two people.
Yes, it was hard to split, but it was really good. I loved the fish and chips. The In the Fog fish and chips were delicious. Oh my god, they were so good. There was like this vinegar or malt vinegar aioli. We loved it. Me and Mary Kate devoured that. The Bloody Goodie Bag, I remember we thought was really good too.
Yes, that was delicious.
Which is like chicken, fries. It wasn't anything like crazy special, but it was good. And then the last one I want to give a shout out to is the Eggs in the Further, which was like an egg in the hole. It had like some tomato sauce, some feta, of course some egg, and then like it was on a piece of brioche toast. So
it was good.
Yeah, I definitely leaned more towards the savory this trip. I thought the savory stuff was better than the sweet stuff this year.
I completely agree with you. The one thing that I do want to say for all of you that have been on the edge of your seats since last year, I did get my walking taco and it was out of this world. It was my favorite thing I've eaten at Halloween Horror Nights over the 3 years that I've gone. It was so good. Yep. Oh, I dream about that walking taco. That was delicious. The rocks from hell were actually pretty good too, even though they looked like literal lumps of coal. Like Sam said, the fish and chips were delicious. And the Eggs in the Further has already become like such an iconic, like, it has already been memed between this group of three like so many times that I will never forget it. Like it just like is such a funny. But overall, like this was such a great year. I will say another thing that I want to note is that the drinks were infinitely better this year, I think, than they were last year. Do you agree with me on that?
The drinks were so much better, and it's not even close. I think it's because a lot of them were pre-mixed last year, and this year so a lot of them were not pre-mixed, which I think makes a huge difference. So they weren't overly sweet. We like loved pretty much all the drinks at Halloween Horror Nights this year, right?
Yes, there was one in particular, the Black Cat's Reprieve, that was like watermelon. It tasted like a sour watermelon, like the what do you call it? Like the Sour Patch watermelon. And it was delicious. I got it twice. I didn't even want to branch out after I got it the first time because I was like,
no, you can find it. You're like, it's rare. The I had that like pre-made that canned vodka spritzer. It was so good. Or I'm sorry, strawberry. Vodka cranberry spritz, whatever. It was delicious.
Yeah. So, what was your favorite thing that you ate at the event?
My top 5 were the Rocks from Hell, the spinal column pinchos,
Those were good.
Slimer's Korean corn dog, the bloody goodie bag, and the pork carniceria, whatever.
Okay.
Overall, I thought my biggest takeaway is that the savory was much better than the sweet. Pretty much across the board. My favorite sweet thing I have is the Cyclops cup, which is literally a peanut butter cup.
That was shockingly high.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a good cup.
I actually liked the poison apple, which when Sam and I were doing our breakdown of the menu, I was like, oh, I don't really need to try that. But I think that was my favorite sweet thing that I got at the event.
It was really good.
That was delish. Let me think what else.
Biggest L was last Key Pop. It was just
horrible. It was literally horrible.
Oh, yeah. Fred's I-4.
It was so gross. Let me think what else. The triplet sweet sampler was a bit of a letdown, but that was also because Zach went and got it for Sam and I, and he was like standing in the rain with it, so it was like a little bit more wet than I think originally intended.
They gave me the sampler, and I had to sit with the sampler as I waited like 10 minutes for the bloody goodie bag.
But the bloody goodie bag was worth the wait. It was good.
Yeah. The sampler was like wet.
Yes. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. Like overall, I think this was such a great event. Like I love this event. Sam and I can probably do like either like a little Patreon about like this year compared to last year. I think that would kind of be like a fun episode to do because I definitely right like a little comparison episode, and we can go through and like kind of compare the houses on like a one-on-one basis. But this year was strong, especially for a year that I think they kind of came out and said budget was a little bit lower this year with Epic Universe opening next year. But overall, I had a great time with these two. We stayed at Dockside Resort, which is always like a fun it's a beautiful hotel and so easy to get to the parks, and then you get like your own private entrance into Halloween Horror Nights. Universal does a really good job at making it an easy vacation. We also logged like 19 miles every night. Stepwise.
That was crazy. That was crazy.
So we worked off the food that we ate, but yeah, I would give the trip in itself a 10 out of 10. I had a great time with you guys, and I'm already looking forward to next time.
Yeah, I will say, like, even for the parts that we said like weren't our favorite, overall, like, I would not change a thing. We had so much fun.
We had like even the parts where we weren't at Halloween Horror Nights, like the first night we got there and we ate at the Hot Dog Hall of Fame in City Walk, and like even that was a blast.
So
it was just a good time. We narrowly escaped the hurricane too. Like we really thought our flight was going to get canceled, but we kind of jetted in there right between the two hurricanes, and it all worked out. For
we got really lucky.
Yes, we did. But yeah. Anyway, until next time, we're gonna have a multi-part episode, I think, coming out for you guys, because we do one almost every spooky season, and we're kind of late on the uptick here, but things have been crazy. But don't worry, it's coming, and it's a good one. It's one of the most famous hauntings in American history, and low-key, I think I'm very convinced that it is real.
I don't know if I am. Jury's still out, but we'll discuss soon.
I'll convince you.
Oh, okay, please.
All right, everyone. Until next time, we're just two ghouls creeping a reel.
And also Zach.
And also two ghouls and a
gremlin. A goblin.
Two ghouls and a gremlin creeping a reel. Maybe if he's good, we'll bring him back for the next time we go to HHN.
Oh wait, let me wait till it's done recording.
Bye.
Bye.